right, I would like to call this meeting to order. Good evening, staff, commissioners, and general public. Let us begin with a roll call.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. I will go ahead and take roll call. Chair Morales,
Present.
Vice Chair Medina,
Present.
Commissioner Cuevas,
Present.
Commissioner Lomelli,
Present.
and let the record reflect Commissioner Valdez is not here. We do have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's all rise and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next item on the agenda, public comments.
So, Madam Chair, we do have
Yes.
a correction to the agenda for tonight. There is one correction to agenda item number 5. The proposed subdivision was inadvertently described as establishing 16 single-family lots. Just please note that this request seeks to establish 16 legal lots to allow 15 single-family residential units. I just wanted to make that correction. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to the public comments, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. At this time, the public may address the Planning Commission on any items listed on the agenda for tonight's meeting, including items that are not listed on the agenda that are within the Planning Commission's subject matter jurisdiction. State law prohibits the Planning Commission from acting or entertaining extended discussion on any topic not listed on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Please be aware that the maximum time allotted for members of the public to speak shall not exceed 3 minutes per person. And also, just please show courtesy to others and direct all comments to the Commission Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, staff communications. Are there any staff communications?
There are no staff communications tonight.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, moving on to the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting on May 7th, 2024. Can we get the motion to approval?
I will make a motion to approve meeting minutes from May 7th of 2024.
I'll second that.
And great. Can we get a roll call?
Yes, Madam Chair. Chair Morales,
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina,
Aye.
Commissioner Cuevas,
Aye.
Commissioner Lomelli.
Aye.
Those minutes are approved. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
I think Chair.
Yes. Can we make record of?
Yes, please let the record reflect that Commissioner Valdez has joined the meeting. Welcome.
Welcome. Great. Next item on the agenda, we move on to the first item on our public hearing.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 2 relates to a request for site plan review approval, and this would be to allow the addition of 20,000 square feet to an existing warehouse building located at 2122 Flotilla Street, and Emily Fernandez will provide a presentation on this item.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and the public. This evening, I will be presenting a site plan review request to allow Ignacio Crespo, on behalf of WinFat Real Estate Investment LLC, construct in addition to an existing warehouse at 2122 Flotilla Street. The entitlements associated with this project include the approval of a site plan review with conditions to allow the 20,000 square foot addition to an existing 34,980 square foot tilt-up warehouse in the M2 heavy manufacturing zone. Pursuant to the Montebello Municipal Code, Section 17.74.030, any commercial or industrial projects involving the construction of 5,000 square feet or more of building area requires the review and approval of a site plan review. Located on Flotilla Street, the aerial map before you delineates the subject property in red. The lot size is 108,517 square feet in area, and the existing warehouse is 34,980 square feet in size. The subject property is currently developed with a packing film warehouse for a company called K-Pack. The project site is Zone M2 Heavy Manufacturing. The immediate surrounding land uses, north, south, east, and west of the project site are also industrial properties, which is consistent with the land use, and the proposed project will not have an adverse impact on adjacent or abutting properties. The slide before you illustrates the applicant's proposed site plan for the project. The proposed site plan review would allow for the addition of 20,000 square feet to the existing 34,980 square foot warehouse. After the expansion, the site will continue to operate in the same way that K-PAC, an established packing film company, does today. K-PAC supplies stretch film, institutional car liners, engineered films, food service products, industrial wraps, and tapes. All required setbacks have been met and will be landscaped. The property currently has 28 parking spaces, and the applicant is estimating hiring 1 additional employee as the result of the addition. Being adjacent to a major public transportation hub, per AB 2097, the applicant is not required to provide additional parking. The project site does have 4 bike racks, and there will be a pedestrian access from the transit station to the warehouse. The slide before you illustrates the elevation for the proposed project. The exterior of the addition will match the existing warehouse and will include 1 large roll-up door, 5 metal doors, and 2 medium truck doors, and also 2 small truck doors. The site plan review application is considered a project per the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA definition, and is exempt per Class 32 infill development. On May 23rd, the public hearing notification was mailed to owners within a 300-foot radius from the exterior boundaries of the property subject, and on that same day, it was also published to the Whittier Daily News. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 0624 approving the site plan review, case number PC 2024-001 SPR with conditions and is categorically exempt per section 15332, class 32 infill development. Thank you. This concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions. The applicant is also here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the staff?
I just want to make a quick clarification. You said that they will be maintaining the 28 stalls?
Yes.
They won't be
Yes.
adding any, but they will be maintaining
Yes.
28 stalls.
Yes.
Thank you.
At this moment, I will open the public hearing. And I would like to invite the applicant rep to come forward if they feel it's appropriate or necessary to address the commission.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Ignacio Crespo. I'm the architect and I represent the applicant for the project. He's present as well. As Emily very eloquently explained to you guys, this is going to be an expansion of an existing facility. So they produce plastic, they need more space for their warehouse, and that's what brought us here, and we would gladly answer any questions you have.
Thank you. And at this moment, we will allow members of the public to come and speak in support or opposition of the project. And any speaker cards?
There are no speaker cards. It would be appropriate to close the public hearing and bring it back to commission at this point.
Okay, at this moment, I will close the public hearing. And we will bring it back to discussion to the commissioners.
I just have a question about the site plan review for a development of this size. It looks like the threshold for an addition of 5,000 square feet requires a site plan review. It's kind of a small threshold to require something like this, right? You know, an industrial building such as this one, I would assume that would be allowed to be even bigger or larger than what they already have. without any limitations. And even the building code doesn't have any, critical parameters that would prevent the permit to be issued and construction to be built for a building that size and for that type of use. It's kind of creates a little additional work for staff, for the city, and for the applicants for something, having such a, again, a small threshold as a trigger, my opinion, but thanks for allowing me to comment.
If I may.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
if I may address that comment. Now that our general plan is updated and our plans are approved, we are focused on zoning code updates that includes looking at the thresholds for site plan review. So this is something that is on our radar. And this will be coming back to the Planning Commission in the coming months for consideration.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a quick comment. Can I please get an agenda for today? My binder has an old agenda. It looks like the items are correct, but the agenda is not.
Okay.
Thank you, Director.
All right, can we entertain a motion?
I will make a motion to approve site plan review case number PC 2024-0001-SPR.
Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Great. Can we get a roll call?
I will take roll call, Madam Chair. Chair Morales?
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina?
Aye.
Commissioner Cuevas?
Aye.
Commissioner Lomelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Valdez?
Aye.
That item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let us move on to item number 3 on our agenda. If we can get some.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 3 relates to a request to modify an existing conditional use permit. This would allow an increase of approximately, it's 4,530 square feet for cannabis cultivation within an existing approved cannabis cultivation operation. And Grace Hayashi will present on this item. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and the public. Tonight, I'll be presenting case number CUP 16M2 for a modification to an existing CUP, conditional use permit number 16-19, which will allow Rand Cruz on behalf of the property owner, Strategic Solutions LLC, to add an additional 4,530 square feet of existing space from the adjacent office space to the existing cannabis cultivation operations located at 7109 Telegraph Road. So the existing use on the property, it's currently 21,290 square feet of indoor cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, and non-storefront retail delivery located at 7107 and 7117 Telegraph Road within a 17-unit commercial industrial condominium building. And the proposed use will now be 25,820 square feet of indoor cannabis cultivation, distribution, and non-storefront retail delivery with the additional address 7109 Telegraph Road. So the project site is located on the north side of Telegraph Road between Church Road and Maple Avenue. The total lot area of the subject site is 216,171 square feet, and the current building area is operated by Strategic Solutions, and it's 21,290 square feet. The project site is located in the M2 zone, heavy manufacturing, and the zoning map further illustrates that to the north, east, south, and west of the subject property that there are other manufacturing zones, and the immediate surrounding land uses are compatible with the proposed CUP modification. So the slide before you is the overall site plan of the project site. The first space outlined in blue is what is existing. 7107 Telegraph Road is 2 stories, approximately 13,160 square feet. And the second existing space located at 7117 Telegraph Road, also outlined in blue, is a single story, approximately 8,130 square feet. The proposed 4,530 square feet is a first floor addition to the adjacent office space, highlighted in red. And the project site has adequate shared parking throughout the 4.96 acre site. There are 256 parking spaces provided and maintained for the site, which are shared. And the cannabis operation will not be open to the public per condition number 13 for the resolution, meaning there will be limited to no visitors on the site. The slide before you is the floor plan of the proposed additional square footage. The purpose of the additional square footage is solely for the facility to have more space to grow and trim bulk cannabis only. The stages of growth for the cannabis plant are mother and clone, and their new floor plan will also be inspected by both fire and police department to ensure compliance and safety. The Montebello Municipal Code, Section 1770-130, requires the modification to be taken in the same manner as the original CUP. Per condition of approval number 28 of CUP 1619, it states that any change, expansion, intensification, and/or modification to the proposed plan's use or modes of operation shall be subject to the review and approval by the Director of Planning and Community Development, who may take action or call for review by the Planning Commission at a notice public hearing. And the applicant has also proceeded with the waiver and release agreement, allowing an at-risk submittal related to the administrative plan check review process concurrently with Planning Commission. And if this project is approved, the existing development agreement will require an amendment with City Council. Case number CUP 16-19-M2 is considered a project per the California Environmental Quality Act, and the project is considered categorically exempt per section 15301, existing facilities of CEQA. On May 15, 2024, the public hearing notice was mailed to owners within the 300-foot radius from the exterior boundaries of the subject property, and that same day, the public hearing notice was published in the Daily Journal. And lastly, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 5-24, approving a modification to an existing conditional use permit 16-19, subject to certain findings and conditions, to add additional square footage to an existing cannabis site for the property located at 7109 Telegraph Road, and determine and find that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15301, existing facilities. Thank you, and both myself and the applicant are available for questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Okay, I'd like to
Actually, I do have questions. In the existing business, have there been any problems reported by the police or neighbors or?
No, not that I know of. I haven't heard of any.
And also, and maybe, it's the business that I'm in, I would not say that they're adding area, that they're expanding the footprint of the tenant space. Because they're not adding floor area, the building's already there. They're expanding into the adjoining tenant space, right? To expand.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to open the public hearing. And I would like to invite the applicant rep to come forward if they feel it's appropriate or necessary to address the commission. And at this moment, we will allow members of the public to come speak in support or opposition of the project, or any speaker cards.
There are no speaker cards for this item.
All right. I'd like to close the public hearing and bring back the discussion to the commissioners. Are there any comments?
It looked like that facility or that building had other cannabis-related businesses, not related to this one, right?
That is correct.
can we call a motion?
I'll move to adopt resolution number 5-24, approving a modification to existing conditional use permit 16-19 regarding case number CUP-16-19-M2.
Can we get a second?
I'll second that.
All right. And can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Chair Morales,
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina,
Aye.
Commissioner Cuevas,
Aye.
Commissioner Lomelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Valdez.
Aye.
That item is approved. Thank you.
Great. And let's move on to item number 4 on our agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 4 relates to a proposed modification to an existing conditional use permit, and this would allow the applicant to upgrade an alcohol license for an existing restaurant located at 1923 West Whittier Boulevard. Daniel Ruiz will provide a presentation on this item. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and the public. Tonight, I will be presenting case number CUP 10-06-M1 for a conditional use permit application which will allow the applicant, Little Mexico Seafood, Inc., to upgrade the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, or ABC, license from a Type 41, an on-sale beer and wine license for an eating place, to a Type 47 license for on-sale general for an eating place, for an existing restaurant located at 1923 West Whittier Boulevard, Little Mexico Restaurant. On March 12, 2024, Francisco Alfaro, the representative for Little Mexico Seafood, Inc., filed a conditional use permit application to modify CUP 10-06 to upgrade from a Type 41 ABC license to a Type 47 ABC license at 1923 West Whittier Boulevard. On March 12, 2024, staff issued a deemed complete letter. The aerial map in this slide shows 1923 West Whittier Boulevard, which, for reference, is located near the corner of West Whittier Boulevard and South 19th Street in a commercial center. The total combined lot area of the site is 35,525 square feet. Of the total 35,525 square feet that comprise the site, the commercial tenant spaces consist of 13,500 square feet, while the space dedicated to the Little Mexico restaurant consists of 2,400 square feet. The tenant space where the Little Mexico restaurant is situated has been operating as a restaurant since 1999, with the Little Mexico restaurant having been active at the site since 2005. Related to the previous approval for the sales of alcohol at the site, conditional use permit 10-06 was originally approved by the Planning Commission on March 20th, 2007. If the CUP modification request is approved, the alcohol license type active at the site would change from a Type 41 license to a Type 47 license, allowing for the sale of beer, wine, and distilled spirits. No additional changes to the site are currently proposed, aside from the change of license type. 1923 West Whittier Boulevard is zoned C2 General Commercial and is surrounded by commercially zoned properties to the north, east, and west. Additionally, to the south there is a church, to the west there is the Montebello Senior Villas, and to the east there are residential properties with an R2 zoning designation. It is not anticipated that this specific proposal will have an adverse impact on adjacent or abutting properties, considering that there are no physical changes proposed to the project site, and considering that the commercial center has been there since 1977. The city's zoning map further illustrates that the project site is situated adjacent to mostly other commercial uses and developments, which should allow the proposed use to be properly integrated without posing significant impacts on the surrounding land uses and community. Regarding the environmental review, case number CUP 10-06-M1 is considered a project per the California Environmental Quality Act CEQA definition. The project is considered a Class 1 categorical exemption under CEQA Section 15301. A Class 1 exemption applies to projects resulting in the operation, repair, maintenance, permitting, leasing, licensing, or minor alteration of existing private structures involving negligible or no expansion of use. There will be no expansion to the interior or exterior of the existing facilities in the proposed project, and none of the exceptions found under CEQA Section 15300.2 apply. On May 15th, 2024, the public hearing notice was mailed to owners within the 300-foot radius from the exterior boundaries of the subject property. And on May 23rd, 2024, the public hearing notice was published in the Daily Journal, the Whittier Daily News. Finally, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 8-24, conditionally approving the upgrade of the ABC license from a Type 41 license to a Type 47 license for the property located at 1923 West Whittier Boulevard, and make the related findings that the proposed project is consistent with the Montebello General Plan, and determine and find that the project, environmental number 7-24, is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15301, related to Class 1 existing facilities, as it consists of the operation and licensing of a private structure involving negligible or no expansion of the existing or former use. Thank you. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions or comments, as are the representatives.
I have a question, Madam Chair. Thank you. In terms of the license, I know that you went over it a couple times, but just want to be clear, maybe for those members of the public that might have missed it. So they already have a license to sell beer and wine, and the request is to expand it to include spirits.
That is correct.
Okay, or mixed drinks.
That is correct.
There is no bar at this location. It's a family restaurant, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Originally, the applicant was going to propose a bar expansion, but based on the comments that were provided by the building division, they decided to no longer pursue that route.
So in the process of consuming mixed drinks beyond beer and wine, it's going to be for while they eat. They're not going to hang out and watch a football game or basketball game, for several hours.
That is correct. The license is, within the resolution, it mentions that the use is a bona fide restaurant, meaning the intent there is to be a family-oriented restaurant. There are conditions in place in case any safety measures need to be implemented or mitigated. At any time, the director of planning can call for the project to be reviewed. I also included a condition for the annual review of the project. So for the first 2 years, we will be conducting an annual review. And at that point, if there are any issues, we can always coordinate with the departments to ensure that additional mitigation measures are implemented.
Thank you for clarifying everything.
Were any letters received from the surrounding neighbors when the 300 radius notice was sent?
No additional information was received from anyone.
Right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to open the public hearing, and I would like to invite the applicant rep or the applicant to come forward if they feel it's appropriate for any necessary address to the commission. Are there any questions?
The representative for the applicant?
You're the
Yes, for Little
representative. Your
Mexico
name?
Seafood. Jesse Navarrete.
Okay. Are there any questions from the commissioners? All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
And at this moment, we will also allow members of the public to come speak in support or opposition of this project, or any speaker cards for the...
There are no speaker cards for this item.
All right, great, thank you. And at this moment, I will close the public hearing and bring back for discussion to the commissioners. Or if we can entertain a motion.
Sure, I can go ahead and make a motion to adopt a resolution conditionally approving the upgrade of the ABC license type from a Type 41 to a Type 47 license.
Can we get a second?
I'll second that.
Great, thank you. And can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Chair Morales?
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina?
Aye.
Commissioner Cuevas?
Aye.
Commissioner Lomelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Valdez?
Aye.
Item 4 is approved. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to our item number 5 on our agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 5 seeks approval from the Planning Commission for site plan review and zone variances for reduced lot sizes. This is for the property located at 301 Jackmar Drive. In addition, this request includes a resolution with a recommendation for City Council consideration. And again, this relates to the proposed tentative track map, which will establish the development diagram associated with this project. Emily Fernandez will provide a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This evening, I will be presenting a site plan review, zone variance, and tentative track map request to allow John Mark Kozark on behalf of William M. Molinari and Antoinetta Molinari to demolish their single-family residential dwelling unit and construct 15 single-family homes at 301 Jackmar Drive. The subject property is generally west of South Bluff Road and north of Washington Boulevard. The aerial map before you highlights the subject site in red. The lot size is 60,101 square feet in area, and the site currently has a one-story, 968,000 square foot single-family residence with a swimming pool, landscaping, and mature trees. The entitlements associated with this project include the approval of a site plan review with conditions to allow 15 single-family residential dwelling units to be constructed on the subject site in the single-family residential zone. Pursuant to the Montebello Municipal Code Section 1774030, any residential project resulting in 3 or more private dwelling units requires the review and approval of the site plan review. The entitlements associated with this project also include 3 zone variance requests. The applicant believes that the following zone variances are necessary to maximize their unique 1.38 acre lot. The applicant is requesting to deviate from the Montebello Municipal Code development standards regarding lot sizes. The standard lot sizes for a single-family residential dwelling unit is 5,000 square feet. The applicant is requesting lot sizes varying from 2,420 square feet to 3,428 square feet. Lot coverage is a measurement of the percent of a lot that can be covered by buildings and other structures. The standard for lot coverage in the R1 zone is 40%. The applicant is requesting lot coverages between the ranges of 41.68 to 47.82%. An additional zone variance is being requested for the front setback. Based on the development standards, the front setback for a new single-family residence is 20 feet. The applicant is requesting front setbacks of 4.5 to 6.4 feet. The graphic is an example of one of the lots that is being proposed. The applicant is also requesting Planning Commission recommendation of approval to City Council for a tentative tract map that would allow the subdivision of 1 single-family residence into 16 new lots for 15 residential units and 1 common parcel for streets, utilities, and a private park. The project site is zoned R1 single-family residential, and the immediate surrounding land uses north, south, east, west of the project are also single-family residential properties, which is consistent with the land use. The proposed project will not have an adverse impact on adjacent or abutting properties. The slide before you illustrates the applicant's proposed site plan for the project. The proposed 15 units will all have a 2-car garage. Heights will not exceed the standard of 25 feet. Access to all units will be via driveway, and the units will have open space, and all setbacks will be landscaped. A 6-foot block wall will also be installed around each property. The project also includes a small park for residents. Before you is the applicant's proposed sample floor plan for one of the units in this project. The units will have between 3 to 4 bedrooms and either 2.5 or 3.5 bathrooms. Each unit will be 2 stories, have 1 living room, kitchen, and dining room. The slide before you are the north, south, east, and west sample elevations of one example of a unit for the proposed project. The application is considered a project per the California Environmental Quality Act definition, and the project is considered a Class 32 and categorically exempt per Section 15332 infill development projects. On May 23, 2024, the public hearing notification was mailed to owners within a 300-foot radius from the exterior boundaries of the project site and on that same day published to the Daily Journal Whittier Daily News. The Planning Commission can either approve, deny, or conditionally approve Resolution Number 724 for the site plan review, zone variance, and recommend approval to City Council for the tentative track map case number PC 2024-002, site plan review / zone variance / tentative track map. Thank you. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for question, as is a representative for the project.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions for staff?
Yeah, I do have questions. I happened to be on the Planning Commission at the last time we heard a proposal of the same site of a former proposed development. And I do remember some of the details, and I remember we denied it. Bless you. I remember we denied it because we felt like it was not a good fit for that space. But I recall that proposed development, I don't remember how many years back, but maybe 5, 6 years. It was an apartment building before and not a single-family residential type of development that this is. And maybe, Director, you know more of those details, that just to kind of help us understand, because I believe that it will probably also be a little bit, concerning to some of the neighbors that live in this area that may want to kind of get a better understanding between the difference of what was proposed back then and what is being proposed now.
Yes, and if I may, Madam Chair. So if I remember correctly, it was December of 2020, and it was the beginning of 2021. And the project that previously was before you was for 31, and they were for sale, townhome style units, if my memory is correct. The project at that time was parked to code, and this project here would. It differs from the previous project in a sense where you have individual single-family lots now, which comport to the R1 zoning. Obviously, the zone variance request would be for the reduction in the required R1 standards, which was described by Emily during her presentation. So it's a different project in the sense that what you're doing is you're taking a parcel, you are subdividing that parcel and creating 16 legal lots. One of the lots would be used for access, obviously, and the park space, but then you have 15 lots that are created specifically to allow construction of single-family homes. And these would be detached, separate, individual single-family homes within that area. So that is the difference, whereas before you had attached townhome style for sale, 31 units. So this is a little, the reduction is a little more than 50% as far as what you see now.
So half of what was proposed back then. Okay,
That's
thank you
correct.
for clarifying that.
I have a question or maybe a comment. I'm a bit concerned that we're being asked to approve this variance without enough details for a commissioner to, have to say, well, what is the difference between the previous project and this project? Leads me to believe that there's not enough information. We don't have any, plans or any type of renderings of what we're expected to approve. What are we looking at? Because we have seen this project before. It was voted on, I believe, in 2021, and it was denied. So I'm concerned that we don't have enough information to make that type of approval.
And if I may, Madam Chair, and I'll look to the city attorney, but we should treat this request as a separate project. It shouldn't be commingled with the previous project. It's a completely different application. The requests are completely different. And the information that was provided is, I believe, in the staff report. We do have plans. I believe there were elevations, and the findings are all in there. The findings that are required to meet the variance criteria were established in the staff report that are included in the package that was published last Thursday. So all the information for this request is there. The difference is this is not a zone change. The R1 zoning does not change here. Before they were basically increasing the zoning, I believe, to an R3. I think it was a planned unit development. My memory is a little foggy, but it was a legislative action where this is more of a, it's a planning commission action as far as the site plan review and the zone variances, and then obviously the subdivision would need to move on to city council for final consideration.
Yeah, and I would like to confirm that the application itself needs to be considered on its own merits, rather than compared to the previous iteration of the application. And just to make a quick point, with regards to your comment about variances, it's a variance as compared to the existing zoning regulations rather than a variance to the prior application.
Sure, thank you for that information. So my next question is, what type of outreach has been done in the community for this proposed development?
And if I may, I would defer to the applicant to provide us with that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this moment, we will open the public hearing, and I would like to invite the applicant rep to come forward to tell us more about the project and the appropriate or necessary address to the commission.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Jack Kozakar. I'm president of John Marr Construction. I represent the owners of 301 Jackmar. And John Marr Construction, my company, prepared the documents, plans, the renderings that were provided as well. In terms of outreach, the owner had a team go out and do outreach to about 500 feet in all directions. So instead of just a couple houses, for instance, on 3rd, they did all of 3rd. They did all of the adjacent streets. I believe it was either last weekend or 2 weekends ago. So we made significant effort to reach out to everybody. The report I was provided was they talked to virtually everybody. So at that, there was a variety of comments I heard, most of them positive, some concerns. I think that the biggest difference between this project and maybe what has been considered in the past is that there are approximately 103 plus similar projects surrounding this one, where the zones have been changed, or there have been various zone modifications or changes from R1 to R3, and it's very dense. A lot of these projects have been very dense. The project directly next door on Bluff, extremely dense, 59 units. This is intended not to be dense. This is what was perceived to be the desire of the community. Let's have something more single family. These are all single family dwellings. And in order to accomplish the community of single family dwellings with lower yards, because people don't really want the yards anymore, more amenities, we cut back on the front yard setback. All the other setbacks are still in place. Privacies are still in place. These are only 2-story houses that commingle with all the other 2-story houses around it. In fact, a lot of the houses around this are 3-story, so it's not really looking down into anybody else's yard anymore. So it's meant to be in concert, in the architectural styles in concert, and the amenities are it's meant to just flow with the rest of the community. So I hope that addresses some of your concerns as well as your public outreach concerns. Were there any other questions I could answer for you?
I have a real quick question, and perhaps we're going into the weeds of this, but you know, there's limited frontage on the road, right? Most of the any of the street improvements are going to be within private property, I'm assuming, is that area being dedicated for street use? These would be privately owned.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of is privately owned public space. So the first thing that happens in this development is that an HOA is created. The HOA owns the 16th parcel, and it's owned by the 15 houses, and they have to maintain it. There's a small park that sort of in the middle of the site. The way the site works, it sort of has a natural flow away from the hills down towards the rest of the drainage plan in Montebello, down the same way as the wash flows. And as you go down that way, that's where the water would collect. So there's a natural basin in the back there. There's sort of a pervious pavement area. Next to that, there's a private park. Natural community sort of gathering place. Right now, we have that penciled out for a pickleball court. So everybody's 5 to 6 feet in front of their house with the 12 feet in between their houses and their backyard sort of all opens up into, kind of a landscape garden-esque area with big garden sort of entry areas and then around the playgrounds. And also the site is very unusually shaped. It's kind of shaped like the state of Texas. And so with all of those contours and curves, it doesn't make for nice rectangular bits of housing products. So you end up with a lot of triangular extra bits, which get landscaped and turned into the public areas of the project.
Gotcha. And you anticipate that trash pickup would be adjacent to each of these properties, or?
We have the full 26-foot wide streets in this project, so we went from the 24 to 26 in order to just be like every other street. The presumably trash would be held in the two-car garages and brought out on the trash day pickup day, just like for any other house in the city. So yeah, that's exactly what we think.
Gotcha. And you anticipate that the access into this new community will result in some public improvements on 3rd and Jackmar?
Yeah, so
It's hard to tell.
there's currently an easement that goes north to south along the west side of the project. Presumably, we're going to have to open that up for new electrical easement down that side. We're going to have to deal with both sewer and water flowing back up to Jackmar, which would be, all the off-site improvements in the beginning. The sidewalk connections on Jackmar would connect to the sidewalk connections through the rest of the property. So there would be significant off-site improvements to make this work.
Are you proposing any new tree planting, things of that nature?
Yeah, there are a good number of trees in the property now which are listed on the current site plan, and there'd be a lot more trees and gardens going back afterwards. That part of the exact species designation has not been determined yet. That'd be part of the construction document package, which would follow this package. So this is the entitlement package, which has a fair amount of detail. That kind of detail would be in the next set.
Okay. And I'm wondering if as a product of this project, or even the previous project, has there been an environmental study conducted?
The previous project did a full environmental impact study, and it came up without environmental impacts. We did not see it as needing an environmental impact study. It's an infill project. The project itself has been developed for over 80 years, so there are no specific habitats that are being threatened, or there are no animals or plant life, so that's not a concern. In terms of the human impact, there are some additional vehicles that are to be expected. I think that the numbers we calculated were, I think there was less than 30 trips in the morning and the evening, so not an overwhelming number for the existing infrastructure of streets in the area. So there is nothing in our view which made us think that there were major environmental considerations, and per the secret standards, it wasn't required for this project. Well, like I said, they did do it in the previous project. That seemed like, and that's a huge expense and it didn't seem necessary.
And I'm noticing now that this request is limited to, I should say, this request is not asking for a reduced rear yard, right? So all of these lots will observe the minimum 15-foot rear yard?
Right, so I think that it's 20 feet, but I could be mistaken on that, but I think it's 20 feet in the rear. And then the additives, setbacks in between the yards in between. And then we've taken the curb plus the sidewalk and added 5 to 6 feet. So the cumulative street distance is about 10 to 12 feet in front of the house. So it's a significant setback, but we've added the curbs at least on one side of each street for circulation and path egress. But I think if you look at the renderings and then you look at the site, it doesn't look cluttered. It looks a lot nicer than a lot of the other single-family product that's on the market right now, to be honest with you. And I think it's going to give a nice community feel to that environment.
Okay. Sorry to reiterate the same question, but perhaps it's a question for staff. What is the minimum setback, rear setback for in the R1 zone?
The rear setback is 5 feet, so they are going that extra 10 feet other than the 5 feet that's by standards.
Gotcha.
So the majority of the private space is not going to be, of course, independent from each of the lots. They don't have to share it, although I think there is a common open space area, right? Thank you.
So this 15-foot rear yard would provide somewhat of a buffer, looks like in all areas where there are abutting adjacent properties, where the development would be abutting adjacent properties.
Okay, I still have a question in terms of outreach. So, I understand and I can appreciate that you guys are asking us to consider this application, just this application. Like, we shouldn't, make any considerations of previous application, but at the same time, the project is referencing environmental impact reports from the previous application. So I think it is still important to consider, especially the public contention and concern with this area. So this is a neighborhood, and these people are still there. And I want to ask the applicant what type of meaningful outreach has been done. What is best practice when it comes to outreach? What type of outreach was done? Was it door knocking? The last week, like you said, there has been previous applications for this property, and in previous times, there was an open forum outreach conducted by a developer, I think from Irvine, I'm not sure. I don't have all the stuff with me right now. So I want to know exactly what type of outreach was done. What doors did you knock on? Because I'm getting an overwhelming amount of concern from the public comments in our binder, the same neighbors, because we live here, so we know these people, right? They still have the same concerns. I have concerns coming from a resident that lives directly, in the neighborhood, a young woman, Brisa Sotelo, and I have some comments from her that I would like to share with my colleagues if appropriate. But one of her biggest concerns is the outreach. This was such a contentious project before. All those people that were concerned should have been contacted and advised that, there's going to be outreach or there's going to be a public hearing. I just don't think enough has been done. So I'd like to know from the applicant before I make a motion on this item.
Yes, Commissioner. So to address your first point, we are not referencing the previous CEQA environmental impact report. The question was asking me if one had been done. I know that it has. I've read it. It was part of public record. We're not relying on that. We didn't do it on this project. It's not required. In terms of the public outreach, there is a stakeholder in the room tonight who was in front of that. There was a mailing that was done to everybody in the community, followed by a flyer that was provided, and door-to-door, knock on the door, talk to everybody that we could talk to. So if you would allow me, I'd like to invite Bill Salazar to come up and speak more to that part of it.
Don't we have to have that in a
Yes.
public hearing?
So at this moment, we will also allow now, thank you, sir, the members of the public to come and speak. I know we have a few speaker cards as well. Oh, staff, you have.
Sorry, really quick before, it is a 10 feet setback for the rear, not the 5. So they're still having that 15, so they still have 5 extra. It is 10 required.
Okay. Now, at this moment, let us invite members of the public to come forward, or the speaker cards that we have, maybe.
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have 7 speaker cards for this item, so
Okay.
let me know.
Yes, please.
Would you like to call the first speaker?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Can we call the first speaker?
Okay. The first speaker we have is Mr. Edmund Robert Velos. You will have 3 minutes. Once you approach the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Edmund Veloz. I actually live at 907 Bluff Road. And ma'am, thank you for bringing up your comments. There should be a different way of expressing this like we had before at the Hollifield Library Conference Room. First of all, the EIR this man's mentioned is wrong. He's not telling the truth about that. There is a protected species on that property occupying 2 trees, red-tailed hawks. They've been there for coming back and forth for over 20 years, and they're there right now. You can go and see them. So they depend on 2 trees, an ash tree and a pine tree. The pine tree is the one that they fledge from. The ash tree has the nests in it, sometimes as many as 3 nests. So that is a habitat that we have to protect. Of course, if you come in there, you'll have to cut those trees down. Okay, CEQA, it may be exempt from CEQA. That doesn't make it right. Now look, I expect that I should be able to get a little extra time because this man had all the time he wanted. These houses are not low-income houses. We would expect that. And yet they're built like low-income houses, worse, much worse. My estimate is they will cost somewhere around at $675,000 each. That's $10,125,000 profit. Now, this is a 1.38 acres. This man can sell his property for $1.4 million. Isn't that enough? We want this area to stay R1. Now look, each of these houses is going to bring anywhere between 3 and 5 cars. You have only 26-foot wide streets. That's half the width of a regular street. These people are going to be parking out on 3rd Street and on Jackmar and maybe even 4th Street. When that starts happening, you're going to have friction. You're going to have trouble. That's those people's parking. They're going to start parking out there like they did in front of my house from those condos that are down the street from where I live. They took every parking place we had. They didn't care. They just came and took it. And eventually the city had to intervene because they had so much trouble there. And they painted the whole curb red. So nobody can park. That was our parking. The other thing is, I said that this is worse than low-income housing. If you go down the street there, 2 blocks, down to on Jackmar, to the 500 block of Jackmar, you see 4 houses that were built by the city of Montebello. These are low-income houses. The thing is, they have a full parking, they have a full front yard. The ones you're saying only have 10 feet 6 inches. But the low-income houses, they have a full front yard. And they have full driveways. They can park 2 full-length cars in their driveway. They have a backyard. So these houses that are being proposed here don't even come up to that level. And these are low-income houses we're talking about.
Okay.
And they're better built.
Thank you very much, sir. When we have your speaker card, and we've heard your comment. we're going to move on to our next speaker card. Thank you very much. We have,
Vote no on this. Vote no on this. We want this to be left R1. If you don't do it, there's going to be trouble.
The next speaker is Pedro Cortez. So you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Pedro Cortez. I reside at 312 Jackmar Drive. I come with more of a impartial view of this, but here's my recommendation or more my views. Our area has always been homes.
one moment, sir.
Okay.
Excuse me. We want to hear all the comments. So thank you. Continue.
The area that we reside in has always been homes, and when they built those homes, those townhomes on Bluff, it did cause friction and parking issues. But with that said, that's another matter. But with this matter, I understand that Mr. Molinari has been a member of our community and actually worked for the community for over 40 years. And I know that at this point, it's gotten to the point where he feels that he should sell the property because, let's face it, it's time to move on sometimes, and it's understandable. There's nothing wrong with selling properties, nothing at all. But what I would challenge the architectural company for this situation is, you are going to make homes, but make them in the right way. You can actually create a cul-de-sac in that area. You can actually have a good 7, maybe 8 homes, real homes with lawns, backyards, a nice little cul-de-sac street, support cars, and it would not infer with the community. It would actually look good in the community. It would look part of the community as opposed to structures sticking out that are looking of the more complex, many small community homes that we're seeing now. I understand progress is occurrence and it has to occur. Things have to happen. But in this situation, I'm a little more impartial. If it were to happen, I would like to see a cul-de-sac, 7, 8 homes. 15 seems a little bit too much. The room doesn't seem that particularly well. And overall, like I said, progress has to occur. And that's pretty much all I have to say. And one last thing, I know that Mr. Molinari is here. I would like to thank him for the services that he has done in the past. And he has also his obligation to what he wants to do, and it's understandable. But again, this is just my recommendation. I'm more in the middle, but for this, I feel opposed to it as my family is. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker card number 3.
Yes, Madam Chair, our next speaker is Giovanni Sengi. Sir, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Giovanni Sergi. I live at 844 South 3rd Street, actually 3 doors down from the property that's being proposed. I challenge any one of you that, besides obviously the dense application that the applicant is trying to build all these homes in, my question is shoving 15 homes in this property, obviously maximizing the potential gain from that perspective. And last speaker, I think, said it well. We see a lot of these dense homes being built all the time, and this is obviously a challenge. I challenge any one of you to go around those streets in Montebello and see how many cars are outside, or where can you park? Literally, on my street, 3rd Street, any given night, it's a challenge trying to find the parking. That's how many people park on the street. I'm a guilty party right there. My garage is not used as a car garage. I use it for other means, but that's besides the point. I have 3 cars. One of those cars is parked outside. Again, same thing around the surrounding areas. If you do drive and you see what the density is of parking, you'd be surprised. I mean, literally, and again, those homes that were built on Jack Meyer that previously were built, look at outside, look at all those parking cars. They come from those housing. So that's my 10 cents on the project matter. Again, I know that Molinari wants to build homes, and I agree with that, but not at the rate that they're trying to do it at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Tom Uch. Sir, please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Uch, 841 South 3rd Street. My family live in the area for 40 years. The subject property is only 4 houses away from ours. I had a few notes here from the city's website. The applicant requested for the city to deviate from the development standard. The standard, like mentioned before, the lot size is 5,000 square feet. The requested change is less than 2,000, in fact, 2,420 feet. The lot coverage standard 40, they requested the change up to almost 48%. And the front setback 20 feet, and the requested setback is as short as 4.5 feet. Again, with the rear setback 10 feet and side setback 5 feet. If the city allowed the project to go through, there would be a lot of changes affected the community. Say the bathroom, bedroom from 3 to 4 bedroom there. Assuming that there are 3 cars per unit, okay, that 45 cars come and go that we never had before, all right? And the property is so small that also would pose the danger in case of emergency, such as fire. It's very difficult for the fire truck, the fire engine, to go through maneuver. So put all community at risk, let alone the value of the property and so on and so forth. So please, would consider the reduction of the units. Maybe just like Mr. Cortez said there, 8 would be more than enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Geronimo Zaragoza.
Can I be done? Thank you, sir, please. Thank you.
That city attorney, I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
is that up to the chair? I just want to confirm the process here.
I think we'll go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir, very much. What we have here is an exceedingly crowded area. This is ghetto housing. You may not think so, but the garage doors are only 10 feet, 6 inches from the street, and that includes the sidewalk. So people will not be able to park their cars on their driveways. If they do, they're going to stick out into the street, they'll block the sidewalk, and that's illegal. Yeah. And so what happens is, if they park on those streets, 26 feet wide, now, very, very narrow and unsafe. I think those are unsafe streets, and I think CEQA has to say, you can't go through streets like that. People are going to be parking outside. That's one thing. The other thing is, you have 16 lots at whatever size they are. On 3rd Street, if you go look at any average lot, it's about a 1/4 acre. You'll be putting 16 of these houses on the equivalent of 5 lots that you would get that are on 3rd Street right now. Like I said, you're packing these things in, it's ghetto housing. And people are going to, and what will happen is there will be trouble. It's going to spill out from there out into the other neighborhoods. And like it happened with me on Bluff Road. So we know this is going to happen. You've seen it before. But also, look, we had this argument before. And we had it at Hollowfield Park. And we were able to have all the people we wanted to come, and they could say whatever they want for as long as they wanted. You know that the last developer to deal with this thing dumped it. Not one person came out in favor. We had like 45 people there. Not one person came out in favor of it, and that at that time was 24 2-story condos. That he had reduced it from 31 down to 24, but that developer, I think they were from Irvine, they told him, no, they abandoned it. And nothing came of that. The city council voted 5-0 against this thing. How often do we got to go through this? Why can't we just leave things the way they are? We're not talking about progress. We're not talking about regression. We're talking about leaving something beautiful. And that house was built in 1935. Yeah, it needs renovation. I don't doubt that. But the property doesn't. The property is as beautiful as what you'll find out in Beverly Hills. And you can't get that here anymore, not down in South Montebello, but we have big properties down here, and I know developers are looking at getting at those big properties. So if this goes, there's going to be more fights like this, and it's going to be constant.
Thank you, sir.
What I'm asking, don't shove something on us we don't want anymore. This is always happening in South Montebello.
We want to get to all the
Thank you.
comments so that we can discuss and hear, move on.
The next
Give us
speaker,
what we want and don't give us what we don't want.
the next speaker, thank you, sir. The next speaker is Maximiliano Carranza. Sir, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Maximiliano Carranza. I also live on Bluff. I'm at I think the southeast corner. I look at the property where things are going to be built or planned to be built. I just look out my bedroom window and I see it. The first thing that concerned me about the applicant was the environmental. One of the things I like about Montebello is that there's a river right in front of us. And then we have the hawks that were mentioned before. We have raccoons, skunks, squirrels, lizards, gazillions of birds. That hawk has killed birds in my backyard. But anyways, so that concerns me. The environmental is like, okay, yeah, just the wildlife doesn't matter. The other thing is the outreach. I work from home 4 out of 5 days. My daughter's home every day. Nobody came at my door. There's constantly people trying to sell me stuff. You want solar, you want bug killing, you want this, you want that. Constantly at my door. The applicant never showed. I can speak for myself only, but they never showed. And my wife and I came from LA. Her folks' home. Her sisters live there now. When we go visit, we can't park. There's no parking in the homes. There's no parking in the sidewalk, in the streets. You got to double park. When you drive out, when you drive in, you got to go like 2 miles an hour because it's just unsafe. And that's what they're planning to do at Jackmar. They're going to fill it up. An emergency. It's already bad enough with people not pulling over when an ambulance is going by. Ambulance, fire. What about that? It's people's lives. you know? It's too crowded already. Go on Google Maps and look it up. Just look at how the sky view, whatever view you want to see, it's crowded. Do we want that? Do we want LA? We already have enough. Already, all around us. I work downtown, it's filth, and it's coming our way. And that's what brings it. Overpopulation brings filth. I don't want that. Not for the community, not for Montebello, not for anybody. I keep telling my wife I want to leave. I love this place. I love Montebello. Just love this place. Don't build. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, our last speaker card here, and excuse me if it looks like Dionisia Hurtado.
We have,
I just came today.
Ma'am,
ma'am,
if you could
we
fill
have
out a speaker
a
card.
speaker card first?
Yeah.
Right on the corner.
If you could fill out a speaker card and we will, yeah.
I've lived there 45 years.
The next speaker would be Dionisia Hurtado. Ma'am, if you could fill out your speaker card.
3 contractors that are on my street. You want to know where the parking is?
Ma'am, if you
Can you
could,
fill out your,
ma'am,
Next door to me, he's got 5 cars.
ma'am,
Across the street from me, he's another contractor.
I'd like to call it to order.
Come,
ma'am, if you would stop, ma'am, please, ma'am. We will call you next.
wait, my son's a deputy sheriff.
Ma'am,
We will call you next, ma'am.
I don't come to your house. You can't park.
ma'am, thank you. We will call you next speaker. The speaker,
This is the first time. I've never gotten involved in it because I've lived in Montebello for 47 years.
Ma'am.
So I've seen them come and go.
ma'am, there's protocol. I'm sorry.
Ma'am, you're going to be given the chance to speak, ma'am, but
You will have an opportunity to speak next, ma'am. Ma'am, we want to get your comments for the record, but please give us an opportunity.
My daughter can't visit me because she can't park in the street. She did. And the
Ma'am,
police just came and it was gonna give her-
respectfully, if you could please, ma'am, please, can you,
Have any of you
ma'am,
to that area?
you want to call recess?
Yes,
Let's
I would
call
like to call recess.
Call a recess, thank you.
I'm sorry, I've never gotten involved in this, but this is too much. It's too much.
Fill out the card, fill out the card.
Okay. I would like to open the public hearing once again to continue the speaker cards.
Yes, and if I may just reiterate, please show courtesy to others and direct all comments to the chair. And when we call your name to come up to the podium, we want to make sure that your comments are on the record, so that's why we have protocols. So the next speaker will be Dionisa Hurtado. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Junisha Hurtado. I just moved in Jacmar Drive 2020. When I moved, I came from SLA. My location is small parking area. When I moved in there, is nice and quiet. When I hear that they're gonna build like 30 unit in Jacmar Drive and now another 15 units is not, I don't agree that. I would say no, because one time I come home from work 12 o'clock in midnight. I cannot go into my driveway because they block my driveway. Somebody park. So I put a sign, please no, don't block my driveway. And also they will move my trash can. The next day, my trash can is still full. That's why I don't like. Can you imagine if a lot of car in one unit is 3 or 4 cars, it's not enough to park in one unit. So they cannot park in the street, right? So I don't agree that. I would say my comment is no. That's all. I don't say anything, I would say no, because I live across the street from 301 Jacmar. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gloria Cajera.
I don't think I have to speak. I already said my piece.
Ma'am, if you would like, you could please.
I already told you. I don't come to these meetings that I give hand. And I know Mr. Malalari. Not no more. So I already said what I was saying.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker would be Arlene Andrade. Ma'am, please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Arlene Andrade. I'm a resident of Montebello now all my life. Just moved over to Bluff Road about 10 years ago. And this had come up before. Density is something that seems to be a concern for all the residents. I really just want to encourage the commission to listen to the residents this time around. High density is just something that no one wants to deal with. And even though it seems to be a state mandate, guess what? You don't always have to do it. You don't always have to say yes. We don't have to allow people to shove their mandates on us. What I had said to the city council is figure out another way to get your funding. If you don't agree with things that are happening in this city, the city council, we can figure out another way. We need to be creative with our funding. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say no to projects that don't fit the neighborhood, okay? Don't be afraid to say no to the people, the governor, the people that want to shove things down our throats that we don't want. You're going to see a big backlash soon. If you're not already, you're going to see even more of a backlash from the legislatures who are now proposing different bills to decrease the high density demands, because those things are just not conducive for every single neighborhood. Okay? And for our neighborhood, it's just not something that we just don't want the high density. It's about the density. If you've heard everybody, the concerns of parking, you know, the trouble it's gonna bring, the problems, more bodies, more, everything, it's just more of a problem. So we like to keep the status quo. And that is just about all I wanted to say. But thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker would be Stephen Stokes. Sir, please state your name and address for the record. When you get to the podium, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Stephen Stokes, and I have lived in Montebello my entire life. I was born in 1948, and in 2 months I'll be 76. And I've lived here my entire life. In fact, my grandparents came here in 1925 and settled in Montebello. So I've seen a lot. No, I don't want that. Okay. I'm speaking just a few words in support of the Casas Bellas project. It's 15 homes. We've had argument about all the parking spaces they're going to take up on the street. Did anybody stop to think that they're going to have 2-car garages in each one of these homes? And I would think the homeowners association would be able to demand that they use those for cars, not for junk, and that they not park on the street, and they'll make some purchase. Some families have more than 2 cars, and they'll make appropriate decisions for them. But that's 15 homes, 2-car garages. It's not going to be the parking problem that it is, but the state is forcing us to build homes as fast as we can, and this is a good spot, and each time they've revised it, they've come down to the number of units and tried to make it more appealing. They say, well, they don't have lawns. Well, a lot of new house buyers do not want lawns. They don't want that duty of taking care of a lawn. So I won't say that, I'm sorry. It meets the contemporary lifestyle. People want to go home from their work, and they want to go in the house and shut the door and not have gardens to tend, and not have outdoor activities they've got to do to keep up their property. So this is basically what people have been asking for. I understand that John Mark Company is a respected builder, and I expect the project would be very, very excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker would be Daniel Gonzalez. Sir, please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes when you get to the podium. Thank you.
Daniel Gonzalez, record on file. I've been a lifelong resident of Montebello myself. I'm familiar with the project. The thing is, I don't know if you guys are missing the point that there's a housing shortage, and you were concerned about the environment, yet you allowed 3,000 and 4,000 square foot homes to be built with 2-car garages, 5 bedrooms. You're gonna have 5 more people. They're gonna need more than 2 cars. 2-car garages, but I guess they're going to be parking in the street. So that wasn't an issue to be approved. Yet you're making an issue of these smaller homes that Montebello is in desperate need of to get approved. And then you're also allowing ADUs to be built, but you're not requiring them to provide any additional parking. So they're going to be parking on the street as well. So you guys got to look at the big picture. There's going to be pros and cons either way, but there's no doubt we need more housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Larry Salazar. Sir, please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes when you get to the podium.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, member of the commission. My name is Larry Salazar.
By way of introduction, I'm a Realtor and I'm the listing agent for 301 Jackmar Drive. But I'm a resident of the city since 1976, so close to 40 years now I've lived in this city. And I grew up in South Montebello, and I still have family in South Montebello. It was my task, just for starters here, to make sure that we did a good community outreach. Mr. Molinari asked us for one thing. He did not want us to do a community meeting in a building at the park, because he didn't want to ask his neighbors to come out on a night to spend a couple of hours mostly just repeating the same thing over and over again. He asked us to hire members of a good company to go out door to door to every person who received your public notice. And there was 119, I believe, letters sent out. That's the 300-foot radius. And then Bill asked us to go beyond that, because the 300-foot radius only covered about half, let's say, of 3rd Street. So they'd covered all of 3rd Street, all of Bluff Road up to Beach, 4th Street up to Beach, 5th Street up to Beach, and Jackmar. All those people were visited on the 25th of May, which is the weekend of Memorial Day, on purpose that weekend so that we could feel more assured that they would be home. And people were home. Some people answered the door, some people didn't. The response that we received was mostly a general, I don't know if I'm for it or against it. There were people that made it clear they were against this project. And more importantly, they thanked us for coming to see them and handing them the brochure that they received that you all must have gotten too, right? Bill printed this to make sure that everybody could see the site plan and then the 15 bullet points that are on here. So that community outreach was very successful. If someone didn't answer their door, we didn't force them to. We always left what we were handing out. And there's a email address there, and your letter had a number to call if you had concerns or questions to call over here. So I think we did a good job, probably better than a community meeting, which I attended both of the community meetings that that previous developer handled. The other point I just wanted to make real quick is that when it comes to the south side of the city, there are no new housing. This would be 15 brand new homes, probably marketed in the range of the high 8s and low 9s. These are not low-income housing, and this is not a ghetto we're building. This is going to be a property that will be beautifying our city. Is that the 3 minutes?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay. There's a lot more to say, but I do thank you for your time. I would just ask you to please consider, we're not looking back. This is 15 homes. Bill did this because the community asked him, why don't you build houses, not condos? And that's what he's doing.
Thank you.
And there's only 15.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker would be Bill Molinari. Sir, please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes.
Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners, good evening. I'm Bill Molinari. You'll obviously know my address. I'd like to just share a few thoughts with you, and it's a bit frustrating to hear all the misinformation that's being put out about this project. These are not ghetto homes, they're not low-income homes. The average home on 4th and 5th Street are average around 1,500 square feet. Bluff Road's approximately 1,900 square feet. These homes are from 1,600 to 2,300 square feet. They're quality homes that will enhance not only the neighborhood, but the city. And as was pointed out, it's the first time that new houses have been built in that area since the 1980s. And I know that because I'm a general building contractor and I built them on the other end of Jackmar. The other issue I wanted to address with you is that these are private streets. It's a private area. The homeowners association will be able to control parking. One of the gentlemen mentions the cars parked on 3rd Street. It's hard to find a parking space. All those cars don't come from someplace else, so the residents who live there that use the garages for something other than parking. In this case, the conditions of sale on these homes will require parking in the garages. The other issue that I'd like to point out to you as far as the consideration of visibility, this property has very limited street frontage. Only one house will be visible in the street. That'll be screened by a 6-foot block wall and a 20-foot landscaped area between the wall and the sidewalk. But more importantly, and I think for the neighbors that are so concerned about changing the status quo, I think you're all aware that the state of California has a very aggressive effort to deal with the housing crisis in the city of and the state of California. Vacant properties and underutilized properties, this is characterized in the staff report as such, are targets now for higher density housing. Under the city codes currently, this property would accommodate 40 three-story condos as what's built directly next door to it. And there would be, in most cases, the city preempted as they are with the auxiliary housing units where they don't require any administrative action. It's mandated by the state. So by building single-family homes in there, we're actually protecting the single-family character of the neighborhood, because once a property is developed in this manner, then it's no longer considered vacant or underdeveloped. So I would ask you to give serious consideration to the facts of the situation and not some of the misinformation that's been presented to you this evening, because simply is not the case. The streets are wide enough to acquire parking on one side. It will be controlled by the homeowners association. Since they're private, there won't be any outside people coming in there or creating any problems in the neighborhood. It'll be all completely controlled and totally safe. It was also mentioned if you'll indulge me for just another moment, the circumstances that, yes, these houses have a smaller backyard, but the houses that were mentioned on South 5th Street, on 500 block of Jackmar, were built by the city, or property was sold by the city of Montebello, redeveloped. And those houses, yes, they have a front yard setback, they have no backyard. Those lots are smaller than these lots, as a number of lots in the area are already smaller than these. So we would appreciate your consideration on the facts and not on some of the misinformation. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Great. So those are all the speaker cards and
That
comments.
concludes our speaker cards, Madam Chair.
Wonderful.
I believe it would be appropriate to allow the applicant's representative to have an opportunity to provide a closing statement. Mr. City Attorney, is that correct?
I'll allow it.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let us allow the representative of the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission and staff. So a number of things came up. First of all, in terms of the state of California's development standards for density, I'd like to point out that one of the options which we abandoned some 5 or 6 months ago when we were planning on this project was the high density option, where we could have used the state development mandates, where we would have traded certain percentage of the housing, about 40% of the housing, as moderate income housing, and exchange gained a by right advantage to increase the development standard. And that would have resulted in a bluff-like massive apartment complex, which we knew was not going to be popular. We abandoned the approach in terms of going with the single-family housing because it is the best option of giving a development standard that affords that property enough money in sales value for the homes in order to manage the construction costs, which are millions and millions and millions of dollars in order to develop the property. So it's a middle ground. There's enough money in this for a developer to move forward with the project, but it's not the crazy 30 to 40 unit complex, which everybody would hate. So it's a middle ground of protecting the single family neighborhood and the like single family houses next door, and try and provide sort of the status quo for the neighborhood. In terms of the 103 or so properties that have already been developed in the surrounding neighborhood. So some of those have already been mentioned, but I'd like to point out that that all of these properties that have lower setbacks, greater density, larger lot coverage areas that surround this property have established the condition of what is allowed in Montebello. So that's been allowed for dozens of other developments, and essentially it would be, if you denied this request, you'd be denying a right that has been established for others in Montebello for this applicant. In terms of renderings, we did provide renderings in terms of the birds. There are birds that live in the area. None of them are endangered or threatened. The standard remediation for birds is that you don't displace them while they're nesting, but displacement of hawks is allowed when they're not nesting, and that's just really working with either Fish and Game or the city in order to do that during the development. There's been a lot of concern about parking. That is the function of an HOA. So if you go any other HOA development around the city, whether it's Montebello or elsewhere in the Southland, you'll see that they don't have parking problems because you have to park in your garage. You're mandated to. And then there is street parking that's allowed, but by permit. And then the HOA could be prescribed, it could be a condition of approval that only parking for that HOA is allowed on HOA property and vice versa. Neither the off HOA area could park on HOA, or HOA could not park in city parking. That's easy to mandate and easy to control via street permits. There is a complete fire truck access lane for this property, as well as a turnaround that's been engineered into the project. The project has gone through fire department review and has received approval. I think we've addressed the issues of outreach, and I think we've talked about the development standards. So I think that there's a lot of concern in the neighborhood about development density. I think that this is a relatively low development density project. And I would say that this project is destined for a redevelopment. The redevelopment that we're offering you is the best redevelopment that the city's gonna see. If the current owners will sell this and somebody else will come back to you, it will be with much deeper pockets and a much greater density. And it'll be by right, and it will be something that's forced down your throat. So hopefully you've heard us and you can see that we're trying to do this right for the city and the owner. Do you have any further questions for us? Okay, thank you.
All right, I would like to close the public hearing and bring back for discussion for the commissioners.
I guess this was probably already brought up, but since one of the biggest issues here is parking, can you, maybe staff help with how many guest parkings will this allow for each of the units of the properties? No guest parking whatsoever. Okay. Okay.
To follow, to follow up on that question, if I may. I think it was mentioned that it's going to be a condition by the HOA to require that folks park within the garage, which is not required for most single-family dwellings. I think some of the public speakers that were complaining about street parking, they admitted to not parking in the garage themselves. But if there's a mechanism in this development to force people to park in their garage, that's a slight advantage over a single-family home, right?
On that same topic, I think that I would like to see, HOA bylaws, because the applicant was absolutely correct. HOAs do regulate parking. They do require that garages are used only for parking, which includes site inspections, so they can come out and check to see if your garage is being used for storage, and you will get fined, and that fine will in turn turn into a lien on your property. So I know that those type of bylaws do exist. We just need to make sure that there is a parking plan and that those bylaws are included in that parking plan. I don't know if staff has that or if that's something to have this early. Another thing I know that HOAs have regulated was when the owners buy into the property, and I know this sounds crazy, but you are only allowed to own the amount of vehicles that could fit in your garage. So I do know that these type of parking regulations exist. Perhaps the applicant can include data, not, just, well, it's not going to be a problem. I don't think that I would feel comfortable voting on anything that is based on like that's not data based. Like, oh, there's not going to be parking issues, because we have voted on developments in the past where we've been very clear and the applicant has presented it's going to be 8 guest parking, there's going to be 1 ADA parking. We are going to put in the lease that they can only have 1 parking space per unit, and these are the amount of units. So I know that that's something that could happen. That's something that I would like to see presented. Staff, has this been presented? The parking rules or regulations, HOA bylaws, or is any of that included? Okay, so there's no parking plan a part of the.
So I think where Emily's going with this is that because the zoning is not changing, it's an R1 zone today, and it will be an R1 zone once, yes, if the project is successful, then it would need to comply with the standards in the code for R1 zoning, which only requires the 2-car garage, and it doesn't really speak about guest parking. So, with that said, if they're not providing guest parking, in essence, they're still in compliance with the code based on the zoning. And with regard to your conditions, and we could incorporate a condition, if the commission agrees, that would basically run with the entitlement. And once these, if these single-family homes go through the construction phase, they will need to fulfill those obligations stated in the conditions prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. So meaning they would not be able to successfully complete the project until they comply with those conditions. And that would also include providing us with a copy of the bylaws once they incorporate their HOA. I hope that answers your question, Commissioner.
Yeah, that answered my question. Guest parking wasn't really, my issue, my question. My question more so was like, okay, we've already established that the HOA is going to regulate the parking, but I want to see, the bylaws included. So you answered the question, but as far as like with the conditions. I want to move on to outreach. Again, the outreach, we've asked the applicant and we've heard from residents of the community, both that are in support and opposition of the project. I want to make clear that outreach, there is a best practice, and you can't simply say that, we did outreach, it was successful. What's the data? How many doors were knocked? How many doors were answered? How many were yes? How many were no? Who had comments? What are these addresses? So, I would like to see a better effort because it's very clear that members of the community do not feel that the appropriate amount of outreach has been done nor documented. And so that's my, to my colleagues, that is my contribution to the discussion as far as outreach. Is there any more discussion?
I guess my only other comment or maybe suggestion to the applicant would be when it comes to the wildlife there. I know that there's no endangered species that was recorded, but also there is nothing that was done to study to see if there are any indeed. Because I do know that there are some seasonal birds that come out and they do nest here within the city. I don't know if maybe that's something that can be included to ensure that these animals are relocated properly and, we're not actually like getting rid of something that is an endangered species.
To add to that comment, if I may, I think it was mentioned by the first speaker that, because I think we kind of inquired about I think Commissioner Medina mentioned about the environmental impact report. And the applicant indicated that they did not do an environmental impact report, although the previous developer did. The question for me is, does this proposed project trigger an environmental impact report?
Pursuant to CEQA, would be considered an infill development project. In essence, because of, again, the zoning, we're comporting to the existing zoning. Therefore, infill development, we did meet the criteria for that exemption per CEQA.
And that would be because these are proposed single-family dwellings, and they're technically by right.
That
And
is
it's
correct.
Like when you say an infill, it goes with the area, and it's not changing, the zone is not changing the density, it's following that, in essence, the general plan, for lack of a better word.
That is correct.
Is that correct? Thank you.
Okay, I have one more comment and then I'm finished with my comments. The applicant had mentioned that this application is an improved proposal for use of that property. And if this is the case, my question is, what is the hesitation to do a public forum and to do documented outreach, open outreach? If this project is in fact an improvement, and it will give the applicant an opportunity to present the facts and the information related to how this project is different than any previous projects that the community may have seen. So that is a big concern to me, is what is the hesitation behind conducting the outreach?
Well, I have to agree on that, on the outreach. It may, where maybe the applicant could also provide proof of that the outreaching to the neighborhood, to the surrounding signatures, or where it's shown the proof of the outreach to the community. The data, the analysis of this, of the surrounding, maybe even the animals, or this analysis, site analysis as well, provided to the community. Is there any additional comments?
So are we looking for an actual spreadsheet with doors that were knocked on and people that they've talked to? Because I think there was I think Mr. Salazar indicated that they went 200 feet beyond what the code requires in terms of noticing and knocked on those doors. So we're looking for those addresses that they included beyond the 300? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. And I've served on these planning commissions, before, and my experience is that people that are usually in support of a project will not come to these meetings. But do you, and I'm maybe this question, sorry, Director, I'm looking directly at you. Is that something that you've seen in the past in terms of, documenting for the sake of, dotting all I's and crossing all T's, and to confirm to the commission that, the majority of the folks that would have no problem with this development or are okay with it, have been, polled and properly given a voice to, um, give us their feedback or at least kind of acknowledge that they were, talked to.
Yes, I mean, we, per the code, and we've met our criteria for public noticing, which is the 10-day requirement. So we've sent out the notices, we published it in the Whittier Daily News. We heard from the applicant, in good faith, they went out and they knocked on doors according to the representative. But you are correct. Typically, if there's no issues, you typically don't hear from that sector. Usually you come out if there's an issue, and then that's why we've had some healthy discussion here at this commission meeting. I don't know if you would like to ask the applicant if they have sort of a summary regarding their community outreach efforts that they can provide to the commission. I believe we can accept that if they have that information.
Yes, we can accept it. I would like to state, though, that, the rules regarding the noticing requirements do exist in the municipal code, and the applicant is required to follow those rules, and to go above and beyond that would require a change of the rules that wouldn't necessarily apply to an applicant that's already submitted their application.
Just a follow-up question, and also to kind of provide information for those who may not know, the notices are formal letters informing each of the households or tenants that a proposed development is coming before the planning commission and it's going to be heard. And they're given, through that notice or that letter, a chance to come and address the commission if they feel that it's appropriate to support or oppose a proposed development.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
That is absolutely correct. The notice has all of the information, including the applicant, the date, time of the planning commission meeting, information on how to contact or come into City Hall to review documents. We provide the link that's online, as well as the project description that's included in the agenda and staff report with a little bit more detail. That's correct.
I have a quick point of clarification, and I think we spoke about this a few minutes ago, but this body, as in the planning commission, has the authority to set conditions that would run with the entitlement, right? These conditions can be related to parking, to the use of their garage space as well. Like, is that within our jurisdiction?
Yes, you could impose a condition regarding the use of garage space. However, I think we would need to research that a little bit to see, if that's something that is enforceable, which I
So offhand, I don't know. There is limitations regarding to the types of conditions that you can pose, and there has to be a nexus in between that and achieving a significant or a legitimate government interest. But as to that specific question, we can take a look.
Well, presumably it would be the HOA that would be enforcing these rules, right? So we could burden the HOA to enforce those rules.
That is correct. The condition could state that the HOA bylaws that are prepared and presented to the city in connection with the plan check review process, or however we want to word that, must include conditions that garages should be kept and maintained for vehicle parking purposes. Or an alternative could be limiting the number of vehicles allowed per household or something to that effect.
In that case, I would recommend, commissioners, that we continue this item to maybe the next available date to allow the applicant to collect the information as a result of the outreach effort that was conducted already, and to allow us an opportunity to examine what conditions we will impose to address some of the concerns of the community.
Can we also include a requirement for an environmental impact report?
Yes. Go.
I'm not sure, I'm just asking.
Yeah, that requirement, it exceeds the required threshold for the applicant, so I'm not sure we can impose that condition. Because the way it works is you do an initial study, for example, and if the initial study reveals that there are impacts, then it would dictate the type of environmental review that's needed. So it could go for anywhere from an exemption, which we have here, or it could go to a negative declaration, a mitigated negative declaration, or as, you know, the environmental impact report, which is the highest threshold.
Would an environmental impact report possibly be required when you're putting in like an R3 development and an R1 development? But if you're doing an R1 development, technically, in essence, I think you called it an infill, right? Is that the
Yes.
proper term for it?
That is correct.
Means that it's technically, it goes with the same zoning use and
Yes.
the type of development that does reduce, because it's before us, the kind of allowances or those thresholds by discretion, but in terms, it's not an apartment building, so it goes, the proposed development is in essence, single-family dwellings, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And if I may just suggest, there is an alternative, which is a condition that would require maybe a professional out there in the world of, you know, endangered species or you know, trees to provide a communication, right? Stating that there are no impacts, which would help alleviate, I think, some of the concerns.
Or maybe since we're considering kind of, you know, pushing this out to another meeting, and I know that the proponent or the applicant mentioned, you know, information about what is required when there is the type of bird that's there. I think it was a hawk that eats the neighbor's birds. I wish they'd eat the rats, but I think they also eat rats, so that's good. And squirrels? Oh, no, I like squirrels. But maybe have, and I'm sorry, staff is looking at me, add more work to your workload, but maybe have that researched and validate those comments to make sure that, you know, we're comfortable with the decision we're about to make that can have, you know, implication on the community in our city, and, you know, be clear on that fact, because it sounds, you know, right, but I don't know that, you know, we can confirm it. I mean, I guess we can Google it right now and that'll tell us, but, or Siri, right? But if we can also kind of, again, we're going to study and review more information, maybe we can have that also kind of looked into.
Yes, Commissioner, we have a very capable team here. We call ourselves tiny but mighty, but I think we could come up with some research to hopefully answer some of these questions that we have tonight.
Director, to that end as well, I understand that we are treating this project as a new project, but I understand that there was an environmental impact report as part of the previous attempt or the previous development request.
Just to clear, it was a mitigated negative declaration, I believe. So it wasn't an environmental impact report.
Okay.
It was a negative declaration with, I believe, mitigation measures.
Okay. My suggestion was that we also get an opportunity to look at the findings of that report to help us make an assessment on the impact of that type of project versus this project.
At the request of the commission, we can absolutely share that. Yeah.
Also, sorry, and I know that, you know, concerned community members want to be heard and they want to voice their opinions on this matter, and they have every right to do so and should be granted that right. But will that be limited to the next session where the speakers who've already spoken not speak again, only to, and you know, I know people want to speak, but, you know, they've already been heard, and so repeating, you know, me too, you know, to a conversation that, you know, has already taken place would be a bit unfair to those who have not spoken yet. And it would prolong or, like, it's already almost 9 o'clock and some of us haven't had dinner. And, and I know I'm volunteering for this, so I accept that. But, for someone that has already shared their opinions, hearing them again, I don't know that it's, beneficial or efficient. And I don't mean to offend any members of the public, but only for the efficiency of the project, I would suggest if it's okay to limit those speakers in the next session or next meeting to be new speakers.
And I'm gonna look at the city attorney, but I think I'm gonna try to answer. We did close the public hearing, meaning the public hearing is now closed. So when we bring this back, although it would be listed as a public hearing item, but it would be at the commission level if the commission was to agree to continue this item. Am I correct on that, or?
I believe it would still be at the point where the commission's deliberating, not necessarily the hearing itself.
Got it. So would it be a consent matter? And I guess this is more for our,
No, it would still require, yeah, I mean, it would still require a vote. I'll have to look into that, but I think it would probably be preferable to have it open.
under a public hearing, but technically the public hearing has been closed.
Yeah, so the matter is still
Okay.
open.
I would like to agree with Commissioner Cuevas, but I also, because I want to agree with you because I don't think that the burden of outreach should be on the commission. A public hearing is not outreach. So outreach needs to be conducted outside of the public hearing. So we did the public hearing, we as a commission has heard, but outreach is not a function of the commission. So I think that outreach still needs to be conducted and documented so that these residents, whether they're in support or opposed of this project, can be heard, and that the facts of this project can be shared with the community. And for that reason, I'd like to present a motion. Okay, so I would like to move to deny the resolution until the elements that the commission has discussed are presented, which includes the parking plan or the bylaws from the HOA to have that included, until the report that is not an EIR, but what you referred it to, is made available to the commission. And thirdly, until documented outreach in an open forum is done for the community. That's my motion.
I would need clarification. It kind of sounds like you're requesting for a postponement rather than a denial.
A postponement.
Because denying is like, you would have to appeal it if you, and then you appeal it to the city council, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so, but to your point about the outreach, I think the notices that were sent met the conditions of the requirements of the code. But, so the notices that were sent, having knock on doors, that's part of the community outreach, but that's not required, right? Can we get clarification on that? That's beyond what the scope of the code requires in terms of noticing, right?
That is absolutely correct. So our municipal code prescribes the notification, and there is no requirement in our municipal code or in any government code that I'm aware of that requires additional community outreach. That is something that is usually done by the applicant above and beyond what the requirements are. And that is
correct.
Yep.
But in this case, we are asking to verify the type of outreach that was done on their behalf, which is okay to do, right? We're not violating any laws by saying, okay, or asking that they present us with that information. Not required, but since they said they did it, we'd like to kind of revisit that and review it.
Yes, based on the applicant's representative testimony, we can ask for that information, for sure.
I have another question, sort of along the same lines, but if we were to continue this item, could we allow for another session of comments or another discussion or an opportunity for the applicant to present information provided, things of that nature?
Yes, you can make a motion to reopen the hearing.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
So do we have to make a motion to postpone this? Oh, sorry, you
That's what I
ready
was-
to say that? Okay, you take it over, Madam Chair.
I would like to, a motion to postpone this item to another meeting so we can have the gathered data and additional information and determine the final for this project. If we're okay.
I will second.
To confirm, the next available meeting would be Tuesday, June 18th at 6:30 PM here in the council chambers.
All right, and we move on to the,
To vote, because I think we.
oh,
oh.
Need a second.
can we,
So we have a motion by
Yes, we have a
Chair
mo-
Chair
yes.
Morales and seconded by Commissioner O'Malley. I will go ahead and take a roll call on that motion to continue this item to Tuesday, June 18th. So I will go ahead and take the roll call. Chair Morales?
aye.
Vice Chair Medina?
Aye.
Commissioner Cuevas?
Aye.
Commissioner Lomelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Valdez? That motion is approved, and this item is continued to Tuesday, June the 18th. And I hope my dates are correct, but I think that's
All
right.
right, the next item is the Planning Commission orals. Are there any announcements? Besides,
Commissioner Valdez has to leave. Urgent.
okay.
Okay, all right.
Besides next meeting on the 18th?
No, I think we're good.
All right, so I would like to call this meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a quick